almost right after, the confirmation of charges, will be going into debates in the lower house about the 4 impeachment cases filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. How do you expect that to go, given that, the SC, of course, gave a ruling in July last year, then they gave another one that's almost contradictory. That's at least according to that discussion in UP Law earlier this week. What's your fearless forecast on how this will go?
Well, I think the impeachment proceedings now will proceed. The House of Representatives and the Senate will be more mindful, even if they don't agree, and even if the very controversial decision of the Supreme Court has been labeled to be faulty or incorrect, it has to be obeyed. So I suppose the congressmen and the senators will adjust a bit their processes so that the Supreme Court cannot again come into the picture and delay the proceedings. So that's a given already. They don't need to respect it, but they have to go by it. And I suppose what happened with the impeachment complaint of the president against the president will also, that same procedure should also be followed, so that there are no charges or no claims of double standards or unequal application of the rules or the laws.
But given the new rules, what are the pitfalls? Can we already anticipate VP Sara running to the Supreme Court again, asking for relief from the SC?
Well, given the circumstances, the evidence will be the same. As a matter of fact, this time it's an added damaging evidence coming from this, again, an insider, Madriaga, who claims to be willing to testify, and he was already included in the 4th impeachment complaint. So far as the evidence is concerned, again, they cannot do away with that. It's already there. They are publicly known. We've heard testimonies, admissions, documents. So it will not change. Perhaps just the process. So most probably the House of Representatives will also avoid the express lane and go to the Committee on Justice. Also for political reasons. If you really want to derail the presidential bid of the vice president, who declared his intention very, very early in the game, a prolonged hearing in the Committee on Justice, which most probably will be televised, will do a lot of damage for her.
Attorney, I wanted to ask you about the affidavits in particular, right? You mentioned the Madriaga affidavit being added to the 4th impeachment complaint. And of course, we're also monitoring the flood control cases. A lot of these charges that have been filed are also based on affidavits. What is the strength really of an affidavit? And how does the process go in terms of the one who wrote it, testifying, and what is really the weight? Because I can just say anything, people would say, have it notarized, and, does that count as the absolute truth?
Well, the advantage or affidavits are held at a higher level of credibility or weight because it is under oath, meaning to say, the person signing the document or the person stating those facts under oath knows that if he's lying, then he can be held accountable and criminally charged for perjury. And nowadays, in the past, the penalty for perjury was very low, but nowadays they've increased it. So because of that, there's a presumption that you would expect somebody testifying under oath or signing an affidavit would tell the truth. But the affidavit is not enough. If the affidavit is used as an evidence against an accused, then it is the constitutional right of the accused to cross-examine the affiant. So it has to be there. So again, if the affiant does not present himself for cross-examination, then the affidavit will be practically useless.
So speculative if, the impeachment goes through and we see a trial, they could ask Madriaga, even though I understand he's in jail, to actually come out and be cross-examined by the defense.
Yeah, that will be the case, and it will be very easy for them to get him out of jail to testify, and then after the testimony, he will be brought back to his cell.
They did that during the
Yeah.
hearings for Secretary De Lima, remember?
Yes, of course. One ploy for the defense, or one strategy for the defense is, will say, we cannot trust this guy because he's a criminal, he's in jail, but he hasn't been convicted. He is also entitled to presumption of innocence. So,
It's also all the recantations that happened. Like Cesc already mentioned the case of Congresswoman De Lima. I remember a lot of those people who testified against her later on recanted. So I'm just worried, like, what do we have safeguards in place so this doesn't happen? Because it's a lot of time, a lot of energy, and expectations also wasted, as well as state resources.
but the best safeguard really is that if you recant, number one, under jurisprudence, rules of evidence, recantations are supposed to be not taken seriously by the courts. Secondly, if you recount, then you are supposed to be charged for perjury, because you cannot have two versions. Because obviously you're lying in the first statement, or you're lying in the second statement. There's perjury. Unfortunately, in our country, when people recant, there's no follow-through about perjury. So, konti yung lakas pa ng perjury. So, they just drop it. So, that's the reality. The non-enforcement of the penalty for perjury has emboldened many people to, turn around every now and then for whatever reasons.